In Division news, we've got another patch incoming. What will it do? What can it do? And also, what should it do are all angles I'm going to use to approach this topic. What's going on, everybody? It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and besides the fixes themselves, I've got feedback to lay down concerning the main item at the heart of this one, so stay tuned all the way to the end of the video. Remember to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. Likes, comments, shares are always appreciated. I've included chapters for ease of viewing, and let's get this rolling. First things first, with today's TU 18.3 update, the Escalation Apparel event has now ended and the Lauren League has now gone live. Future dates to pay attention to are August the 1st for the Polarity Switch GE, and then August the 8th for the next Manhunt Rescue target, Mitchell Billings. And now on to the changes, and be forewarned, most of these are just housekeeping items, but I will be starting at the bottom of the change logs and moving upwards. Now, I know that many of you have been asking what the hell these TODO gear items are and why are you looting them. Those are just placeholders for gear that was not yet finished, as in on the to-do list, and those will be removed from the game today. There were also two interesting fixes that I didn't know about. One was this infinite enemy spawn issue in the final portion of the medical camp attack side mission, and the second was players getting stuck on garden bed props in the castle settlement. Anyways, let me know if you encountered either of these, especially that infinite spawn issue, because that sounds wild. Seems like this update has been deployed to fix infinite items, and when I discuss Descent, you'll understand where I'm going with this. Switching gears, and for you raiders, this one is for Iron Horse, and for anyone that saw the shutter doors remain open when the leader reset the raiding party, they've apparently got something hitting the game today that will fix that. And now onto the big 1-2 punch for this update, starting off with gear, weapons, and talents. The perfect companion talent proccing without being near an ally or skill has apparently been corrected as of this morning. Now, I personally never messed around with this one, and I know there has been some confusion when players have tested this at the shooting range, but that involved the talent proccing due to the NPC standing right next to you at the range. I'm reading their fix as a proc issue versus a stack issue, because the stack has always been there and was reported on the PTS before this current session went live, but has recently been discovered as being able to stack and stack and stack as you swap gear pieces. Anyways, let me know if I'm reading this one correctly, because to me, they are only fixing the proc issue. There was also a fix deployed this morning for Unbreakable and its perfect version not activating on newly equipped items with the same talent. They've added the Sacred Imperium and Ninja Bike messenger bags into the respected targeted loot pools. And by the way, is it just me, or was the buzz surrounding Ninja Bike really short-lived? I mean, I still use it on a couple of my builds, but losing out on the talent on the backpack and players preferring Memento seems to have all but forced Ninja Bike into the stash. Anyways, along those same lines, both the St. Elmo's engine and Shocker Punch holster have also been added to their targeted loot pools, but the blueprints need to be unlocked through the Season Pass reward track first. The second part of this update is heavily focused in on Descent, and for good reason, but let's check out the fixes first, and then I'm going to circle back around and add in my thoughts. Expect to get the Nemesis arm patch after now defeating the Nemesis. And I don't know if you can tell from the background footage, but that's the patch I currently have equipped. Now, for those of you struggling with the Nemesis encounter itself, I know it can be difficult. Expect in solo mode for his damage to be reduced by 10%. Descent projects missing have been fixed. There's also a fix for the weekly project and loop rewards listing incorrectly. They fixed an issue where the players could fall through the floor in the Nemesis arena, and I'm sorry, but if I spent that much time to make it up to the Nemesis and that happened, it would be full on. No! Global events can no longer grant bonus XP in Descent. Okay. Fixed issues with players getting stuck inside corridors between specific chambers, effectively nuking a Descent run. No! Pop-up buttons not showing as clickable when interacting with consoles. Yeah! And finally, that wild boss arena timeout thing, I don't even know what you call that, has been fixed. Okay, with all of that out of the way, let's get really real with Descent. And it's not enjoyable, and very few players are playing it. There you go, video over. Have a great day. but I can't get that savage about it, so let's talk about it, starting with the positives. It's newish. It's a fresh take on the Division. I mean, it performs pretty well. I've never crashed while playing Descent on PC. It gives us that fresh baby agent feel, just like when we started the campaign. And in groups, it can be insane, especially the banter while on mic. On the flip side, the time invested versus rewards is just downright terrible. There are no save points. If you crash, you can't join back in. That's it. Game over. And to really get a chance at decent rewards, you are looking at hour after hour before you start to see any real returns. And finally, that wild player power fantasy that we saw in the PTS has been replaced by a sweaty, grindy game mode. So, what can be done about it? Well, here's some of my really early suggestions, because I was playing Descent starting way back. And one of the first things I recommended was to award players expertise XP when they are using weapons or skills they are not yet proficient with. I would never in a million years use an M16A3 rifle on one of my open world builds, but in Descent, that might be what the game gives me. If I knew that using that rifle would award me expertise XP on my open world character, I would definitely invest more effort into this mode. I also made the suggestion to include a daily rotation of gear expertise, much like targeted loot, but for XP. So, for instance, this day, if you go into Descent, you can get expertise XP towards the AUG A3 or Hunter's Fury. Again, this would drive up engagement. I also pushed hard for a Descent-only shop with specific named and exotic items, cosmetics, and commendations. And by the way, none of this was installed into the game except for a few commendations. Now onto the rewards versus time issue, and this is probably what is pushing most players away from this mode, or at least more than any other factor. Descent is grindy, and it's super stingy with loot. I mean, hours of gameplay might net you a simulation cache, it might not. Blueprints are also tied to the mode but are rare, and what I tend to find is that I get mostly standard caches, a few rank ups, and not much more out of this mode. Now, as I pointed out in previous Division 2 uploads, I can get high levels of XP in short order with a few directives active and hitting executions in the open world. Also, having a Descent mode currency in place so we could earn Descent tokens and spend them at a shop for exotics would have been really useful, considering that the entire in-game and expertise system is predicated on you hoarding exotic components. As it is, Descent is an interesting concept that has low replayability, low reward structure, and demands that a player be hyper-focused on what they are doing for hours on end. Also, speaking to this, playing Descent on the PTS, it used to play as a mode that allowed players to stack power on power, almost like having Golden Bullet active at all times, striking all the right notes in this symphony of destruction known as player power fantasy. Our agents have been weak for so long, and Golden Bullet or Descent during the PTS finally gave us that feeling of strength and power. I mean, it felt good to slap the content around for once instead of vice versa. But this Descent is a shell of what we tested. Standard offensive and defensive talents have been repurposed in their stock forms into exotic talents, which they are not, like Bloodsucker and Glass Cannon. Other talents were scaled back, netting us less damage or less healing. But here's the thing, and I'll try to end with this. I felt that the developers had the bones of Descent tuned pretty well in that last PTS. Huge power deltas available, making us feel like we did back before Gear 2.0 hit the game. You know, back when specialized weapons were actually deadly and more than backpack eye candy. That PTS version of Descent was really fun to play. It had group scaling issues, but when you had a few loops under your belt, had slapped on Allegro and unhinged a few times, it was like Golden Bullet, but with additional talents. The current form of Descent is far from that old feel. It's sweaty, it's grindy, and based on how the game was trending, went in the exact opposite of what we needed. There was an active push for short burst game modes like Countdown and Summit, modes that could offer up something quick and to the point and allow players to max out gear drops in small time investments, save the game, and log off for another day. Descent is the very opposite of that. For max gear, it requires a lot of time invested, offers no save points, and it's not very forgiving, with the only real unique loot drops being offered as weekly comms that are achieved by killing the nemesis. Now, the only way to salvage this game mode and get more players involved is they need to add on as much loot, as much XP, and as many unique items for purchase as the game save files will allow. Create a Descent economy with a Descent-specific vendor for specialty weapons and cosmetics. Buff those player levels back to what they were during the PTS. Switch back these non-exotic talents to pre-launch levels, and bring back the older, powerful feels to our Descent builds. A player shouldn't need to invest 5 to 6 hours of non-stop playing to finally feel rewarded. Add in save points, or at least give group players the ability to rejoin a party they were in if they drop. Enable weapon and gear expertise and targeted loot expertise on a daily rotation, because at this point, only throwing the entire kitchen sink at Descent will be enough to save it. But as always, these are just my thoughts. I want to know where you stand on all of this. How does Descent play for you? Sound off in the comment section below. Make sure to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. Likes, comments, shares are always appreciated. All my socials can be found in the video description. Shout out to the over 128,000 of you that have taken the leap and hit subscribe. And as always, a special thanks goes out to my patrons on Patreon. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.